That day, as the last breath of warmth faded from the air, I stumbled upon a sight that stopped me cold. Tucked inside the dilapidated kitchen of an old food stall, a place that once buzzed with life but now reeked of damp and decay, was a small, frail dog. The wind bit harder, and someone beside me asked, "Should we try to gather some food?" I didn't respond. My hand had already tightened around a piece of stale bread in my pocket. The dog didn't run. It lingered, hovering within a small radius, as if it was waiting, not for something, but for someone. Perhaps it had grown, used to waiting. Maybe it no longer expected kindness, but still hoped for it in silence. The area was full of discarded junk, rusting metal scraps, and broken furniture. There was no shelter, no warmth. Yet this little soul kept wandering in circles, like it had chosen that broken corner of the world to call home. It reminded me of someone stuck between giving up and holding on. When we approached, it didn't bark or growl. It just looked up with eyes clouded by pain and exhaustion. I could see its body trembling, its legs weak and bent in unnatural angles. It was hard to imagine how it had survived this long, how many nights it had crawled into a pile of trash, hoping to find a crumb of food or a dry spot to rest. Some said they'd seen it before, limping around the area like a ghost, always returning to the same abandoned shed when it rained. No one had claimed it. No one had chased it off. It had simply faded into the background of a place forgotten by most. I tossed it a small slice of ham. It devoured the food like it hadn't eaten in days. Maybe it hadn't. The way it chewed, barely able to keep balance, broke something in me. It didn't whimper or whine, but every motion screamed of hunger, loneliness, and silent endurance. We knew we couldn't leave it like that. Even though we were uncertain, we carefully lifted it into the car and drove straight to the nearest vet. The dog curled into itself during the ride, terrified, unsure of what was happening. It lay still, not out of trust, but out of defeat. At the clinic, we learned the truth. Its legs had lost almost all muscle. Myelitis, a severe inflammation in the spine, had damaged its nervous system. The vet explained it as simply as possible, but the words still hit hard. This wasn't just injury. It was deep, prolonged suffering. It had likely endured pain for weeks, maybe months, without anyone ever noticing. And so began the long road to healing. Every day we massaged its legs. We wrapped them gently, supported them with makeshift braces, and whispered encouragement like a mantra. We named the little fighter Brave, a name that meant precious treasure, because that's what he was. Even in his broken state, he carried a spark we couldn't ignore. Physical therapy was slow, grueling, and full of setbacks. But Brave never gave up. With each passing day, we saw progress. A twitch, a small movement, a moment of balance. We fashioned a small wheelchair to support his frame. He was hesitant at first, confused, but then something shifted. He moved, wobbly at first, then steadier. It was as if his spirit recognized the taste of freedom. We gave him acupuncture, moxibustion, iodine treatments for his wounds. Slowly, tender new skin began to grow. Each small milestone felt monumental. Each step a victory. And then, one morning, Brave stood without support. His right leg still faltered, his body leaned to one side, but he stood. He looked up at us, eyes wide with a new kind of light. We cheered. We cried. We believed again. Now every time I see him try to walk, to run, to explore his world with wobbly joy, I remember what it means to hold on, not just to a life, but to the belief that every life matters, even the ones the world has thrown away. Brave's journey isn't over, but it's no longer a story of pain. It's a story of resilience, love, and second chances. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough to change how we see the world. The rain came down in fine sheets, turning the ground into a slick dance floor of puddles and mud. But it didn't stop the stubborn energy surging through Brave. You walk in the rain? Yes, go, go, go! Someone called out, half laughing, half urging. Brave didn't hesitate. With the air still thick from yesterday's storm and hope flickering in his eyes, He followed the scent of a meat treat held just ahead like a golden ticket. This wasn't just food, this was motivation. This was therapy disguised as reward. Gym out as rehabilitation, someone whispered like a mantra. Step by step, his paws pressed into the wet earth, guided by soft commands and gentle claps. Follow me, came the voice again. A promise hung in the air. If you move forward, if you trust me, you'll get the meat. The meat is not just there, it is here, waiting for you, Brave. Even Zhao Cheng seemed to beam with pride, wanting to join this quiet revolution. In his own unsteady way, Brave tried. It wasn't perfect, but it was effort. He took one cautious step, then another. For him, eating was sacred, a reason to survive, a discipline not to be rushed. The rain kissed his back. Then came the magic. To court harm, someone muttered, but it didn't matter anymore. Brave stood. The cheers came like a sudden bloom. Eat one, walk one. Good walk. Yes, good luck, golden retriever. His breed wasn't pure, his steps weren't clean, but none of that mattered. He was moving. He was alive. He had stood. Around him, the rehabilitation team giggled and praised, their voices an orchestra of hope. He started grinding his little claws against the walking board, the friction awkward but real. Jima, one of the dogs who had previously mastered the ramp, jumped around in encouragement. Brave's tail, once limp and lifeless, now quivered. Then miraculously it wagged. The team gasped. The tail hadn't moved before. There had been no response at all, not even a flicker. Now it swayed. Now little brave monster looks good, someone exclaimed between laughs. I love you so much, little brave. With each step came balance, and with balance came confidence. Then came the vaccine. The little guy got his first shot, a painful but essential passage. Use your perfection every day, someone whispered as they stroked his fur. His eyes, glimmering with playful betrayal, seemed to say, You tricked me with that little smile of yours. But no one could stay mad at Brave. He danced, even spun around, with a clumsy rhythm that made everyone laugh through their tears. He knew the rules of the game. If you don't come, you can't eat this beef cube. He stared longingly at it, perched just outside his comfort zone. Come here, Brave, come now. He didn't come at first. Fear and memory held him back. He trembled. You can't eat, just like you don't dare to jump down. You can't come out to play. So they tried again, patiently, carefully. Push here, good for walking. And suddenly Brave, sweet, broken, brave, overcame his fear and took a step, then another. Do you like this little skirt? Someone joked as they dressed him up, and the room erupted in laughter. He looked up, tilted his head, curious. He liked attention, even if he didn't understand the fashion choices. They were a team now, these people and this dog, all beautiful in their way, all fighting for something. But not every day was easy. The first time they tried to bathe Brave, he was terrified. He clung to his rescuer like a drowning child, legs flailing, eyes wide. He was soaked, shivering, but still he didn't bite. He didn't growl. He trusted. And trust, for a creature who had lived through hell, was the biggest miracle of all. Little, fat dog. Someone teased gently as they carried him to the scale. He had gained weight, a good sign. His fur, once patchy and dull, now shimmered in the light. The 50th day of treatment arrived like a sunrise. They cheered. They celebrated. Brave's hair had transformed, soft and golden. He learned to climb, to jump, to descend slowly with dignity. Step by step, someone repeated like a sacred chant, one step at a time. And still there were new fears to face. When he saw the hospital door again, he hesitated. But now there were new friends to distract him. Dogs in wheelchairs, cats with missing limbs, a small army of survivors learning to live again. Brave wasn't alone anymore. The courtyard became his playground. The medicine became his fuel. Soon, they took him to a peach orchard, the family's pride. I came to pick peaches for my family, Deo said, chuckling. Brave ran between the trees, chasing shadows and barking at butterflies. He knows to find the cool place. They laughed as he sprawled under a tree, tail wagging. This was his world now. Deo had been working tirelessly from dawn to dusk, picking fruit, feeding animals, nursing the wounded. I haven't eaten all day, she said, but watching Brave jump after chickens, misbehave like a true naughty pup, brought her joy that no meal could match. The orchard was alive. The air smelled of peaches and promise. Brave chased chickens, chewed ropes, got scolded, and did it all over again. He wasn't a good student, but he was loved. Even the old man came to help. Peaches filled every basket. Laughter echoed through the valley. Brave had become part of something bigger. A family, a cause, a reason to keep going. As they loaded the fruit into crates, they spoke of how the peaches ripened differently on every tree. They debated when to harvest, how to preserve them. It wasn't just about fruit anymore. It was about healing, rebuilding. They fed the birds, the dogs, even the worms. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was too small to care for. Brave didn't want to leave. He barked at the gate, eyes pleading. I brought some delicious food for you, Deo said, kneeling. His ears perked up. He knew that voice, that promise, that love. And in that moment, under a tree heavy with peaches, beside crates of sun-warmed fruit, Brave stood tall. Not just because he could, but because he had a reason to. The peaches that were half-eaten by birds and slightly bruised by bugs weren't wasted. Not here. You ate this because of the birds, and the bugs hated it, someone asked, their voice a mix of amusement and resignation. I looked at the fruit, thinking how sad it would be to throw them all away. Even if they weren't perfect, they still held sweetness inside. What a pity, I whispered to myself. Earlier, we were high up on the mountain, picking peaches from the trees, our shirts damp from sweat and sun. I saw that many of the peaches, despite the blemishes, were still good to eat. We tasted a few ourselves, juicy, fragrant, slightly warm from the sun, and agreed they were too precious to discard. Let's take them to the courtyard, I said. The dogs hadn't had any real treats in days. They deserved something special too. So, we carried the boxes down, planning to wash each fruit, remove the pits, slice them up, and share them with the pack. They deserved a little sweetness after everything. Those little guys, our four-legged companions, weren't picky when it came to food, but out there in the wilderness, sometimes they hesitated. In the courtyard, though, surrounded by familiar smells and friends, they became bold, eager, even competitive. You could see the sparkle in their eyes as they gathered around, tails wagging like metronomes set to joy. For a brief moment, I leaned back against the wall, feeling the exhaustion settle in. Yes, take a break, I told myself. The last 2 days had drained me completely. My energy was gone, like wind slipping through an open window. I rinsed the fruit in a basin, what little water we had left after giving most to the dogs, and watched the tiny buds float gently on the surface. I thought of taking a chair, lying down just for a bit, just to rest my eyes. I must have dozed off because the next thing I remember is a sharp laugh and someone whispering, "She's trying to escape from prison." It was one of the dogs again, mischief written across her face. Even the prince, our dignified golden retriever, had stretched his head around the corner, worried he might miss the fun. No bugs. I chuckled, shooing away a curious paw. I carefully selected the peaches, checking each one with attention, washing them in the only pot we had left. Every basin had been commandeered by the dogs for their drinks or splash sessions. With the peaches cleaned, it was time to show off a little. My knife skills weren't bad after all. I sliced them swiftly, skillfully removing the pits, making sure none of the pups choked on the hard centers. I muttered to myself, "You dug this hole for me in the middle of summer, didn't you?" Remembering the pit one of the dogs had excavated like a seasoned landscaper. Brother Diao had tried so hard to lay things neatly, but Summer, the little rascal, scratched everything up again. He seemed especially interested in peach pits today. Meanwhile, someone was yelling from the gate, "Who's paying the electricity bill?" Oh, right. I had forgotten about that entirely, lost in the chaos and peach juice of the past few days. After more than 40 minutes of slicing and preparing, everything was finally ready. I looked around at the eager eyes, big and small, human and animal alike, watching my every move. "Are you ready?" I asked, smiling. There's something magical about sharing food that you've grown, harvested, and prepared yourself. Homegrown peaches, kissed by the mountain sun, had their own kind of magic, fragrant, sweet, full of the kind of flavor you can't buy in stores. Brave had gone up the mountain earlier, hadn't eaten a bite, but now back in the courtyard, surrounded by friends and familiar laughter, he couldn't wait. It was more than just the fruit, it was the experience, the shared joy. "Go ahead, eat," Mina said with a gentle push. "You're shy when I look at you," she teased as one of the dogs hesitated, glancing her way with bashful eyes. But the moment passed quickly. Soon everyone was munching happily. The hot sun made everyone thirsty, so I prepared a basin of water for the pups outside. We had a new one somewhere, but I wasn't going to use it just yet. The current one, though cracked, still held up fine. "This'll do," I said, patting it like an old friend. Brave, ever the explorer, dove into the water before I could stop him. He didn't know where he got the idea, probably just saw it and thought, why not? He splashed around, rolled, and played like a carefree child on a summer day. "Princess, you can't hide from what the princess says," someone called out, laughing as she pointed at Brave. His mouth was covered in water, his eyes glinting with mischief. "Look what you've done," I said, trying to sound stern but failing to hide the smile. "You even got your own face wet." And Brave, with that clueless yet proud expression, just stood there, dripping and delighted, completely unaware of the mess, but fully content in the joy of it all.